I am delighted to introduce Chris Rintoul, who is based in Northern Ireland, working in drugs and homelessness services for over 20 years. He's also the co-creator for U-Turn Training's opiate overdose app, and if you don't have it, it is free and available on both platforms. And he's the lead trainer for overdose response in Northern Ireland. So, thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Kirsten. And thanks to all the other speakers. I feel really bad for you guys, and because I haven't got a presentation, I apologise for that. There's a few reasons I could go into to explain that, but none of them are particularly valid or appropriate. So all I want to do really is spend a few moments with you, because I recognise that time has marched on and you're all hungry, and attention spans are probably dropping at the moment. Talking about take-home naloxone, and talking about our experiences in Northern Ireland. There's a lot of people in this room here today who've been part of that and continue to be part of that, the shaping, the development, the rollout and the sustaining of that programme. So firstly, actually, I have a thanks for SDF, because SDF and ourselves, or various agencies and organisations, have worked together to implement take-home naloxone in Northern Ireland. So it was the SDF who 2011 came along and watered the seeds of take-home naloxone. They were there already, but the seeds need to be watered with training. So a number of us, I think around 40 in total, some of you are in the room here today, had train-the-trainer training from SDF at that time. And that allowed us to kickstart the programme slowly, but effectively in the intervening years from there. We had already been rolling out some training, particularly around sort of more generic overdose response. Myself and Buff and a few of the others here were part of that. But we had no naloxone and no sight of naloxone coming to make that happen. So it was the Public Health Agency in Northern Ireland, which is the equivalent to PHE here, that brought SDF over to help us with that. So what did we do after that? Well, we did a lot of things. Some of it actually involved aggressive campaigning. I'm a social worker by trade. I always say don't boo too loudly. But I would see my particular vein of social work, if you excuse the pun, as being activism and creating opportunities for change and social justice, and particularly for those people who have addiction in Northern Ireland. So we got active and we got aggressive, and that was a collaboration between activists, service user activists and workers like myself, who were able to start campaigning and pushing for and asking questions of we have health and social care trusts. We are integrated health and social care in Northern Ireland in a way I think these are separate. So we pushed them to get naloxone and give us naloxone and let us give it out into the hands of the people that most need it. So we set up a national training programme, and that actually became the organisation, or it was led by the organisation I previously worked for, which was Council for the Homeless Northern Ireland. And we developed training for trainers. Now, actually, I think coming into 2015, when we have this recent change in legislation, what we are going to move towards is not training for trainers, but training for the trainers of trainers. So we're going to be able to create more people like myself, like Buff, like Kirsten, etc., who will go throughout and regulate and help people to become trainers in naloxone. And we developed a lot of partnerships, and that was the key thing, I think. If I learned anything through our experiences, and a lot of mistakes were made, and I do things very differently if I had 4.5, 5 years again. But one of the things we did well was to develop partnerships with all the stakeholders and let the PHA take the lead in it, then our public health agency. So we had the Northern Ireland Housing Executive, which is like the housing aspects of your local councils. We had voluntary sector agencies. We had the Health and Social Care Trust, the police, the Northern Ireland Ambulance Service, and all the sorts of others. So you'd be looking to think of, I suppose, the equivalents for your own setting and areas. And we got everybody together, and we looked through what is needed. We looked at the viability of naloxone. We looked at the efficacy and effectiveness of naloxone programmes. We obviously took a lot of information from Scotland, and then we ran with it. So now Prenoxad, the version we have of naloxone is Prenoxad, and we have that throughout Northern Ireland. We give it out in a form which allows for intramuscular injection. So we don't have a postcode lottery. There is no area that you could live in Northern Ireland that you would say, well, I'm sorry, we can't give you naloxone. And I think that's great. I think it's really, really good. I'm encouraged by that. Often we have done things too late in our country. It's only 10 odd years since we introduced substitute prescribing, 15 since we had needle and syringe provision. So we were very late to the plate on those ways. But in this way we have done things well, and I think that's good, and we should reflect and be pleased about that. We've developed a lot of resources. Buff and I, obviously, we co-created the U-Turn app, which we do as separate to our day job, so to speak. But we've also developed a lot of leaflets, posters, etc., all sorts of things that we Naloxone Z card that I haven't got one to show you at the minute, but those sorts of things to reinforce and to push further for Naloxone. So now we have into the targets of the addiction services written in. 80% of people who come to an addiction service with an opiate substance problem or problematic opiate use are offered naloxone at a very early stage of their treatment, and 80% of them will receive naloxone. So whilst we would like to see 100 and 100, to actually have it formally written into the targets for everybody has been a major success because it concentrates the minds. You find nothing clearer that concentrates the minds of what is written into a target and what you get money for or not get money for. So that was good. We now also are looking to provide naloxone through the expanding sort of the impact of the legislation this year, I suppose, which allows us to expand access to naloxone. So that is now just, that can be given out by low threshold services in Northern Ireland. So those who are working in the likes of outreach services, drug outreach services, they can give it out as well. Hostels can give it out, so training for hostel staff who have been trained can then go on and train people who live in that hostel who are at risk of opiate overdose, which I think is a great thing, certainly coming from my background, which is very much homelessness services. What else? Pharmacies involved in opiate substitution and also involved in needle and syringe supply, they can give it out. And what do we see? In 2014, for the first time ever that our stats are recorded, we saw a drop in the number of overdoses, fatal overdoses, where heroin was mentioned on the death certificate. That to me is just fantastic. We saw it rise and rise and rise and rise, and over the decade, or a couple of decades since there has been relative calm in our country from things that used to happen, that kept going up and up and up. We became a more normal westernized society or country, and it kept going up, and that's one of the consequences of that. So to see it drop last year, and a significant drop, was a great thing. Now, I can't say, was it definitely naloxone that made the difference there? Only time will tell, and specific research to look at that, but I think it's a great thing to be able to point to so far. We do have other things, unfortunately, with our stats last year that weren't so great. We saw quite a significant increase in the number of times that methadone was mentioned on the death certificate, and that brings its own issues and problems, I guess, and concerns for all of us. Okay, so what else did we see? The concentration, again, of people who died, similar to the other parts of the UK, was amongst poor groups, people who experienced poverty, and in our culture as well, people who are the most traumatised by a result of the conflict we had, and we'd see drug-related deaths concentrated amongst those groups. In 2012, I think it was, 2011, I can't even get my years right, Buff and I decided that we wanted to do something to support take-home naloxone, and we took a risk. We took a huge risk, in fact, more than we probably would have done if we'd known what it was really about until later on. But we took a jump, we took a risk. We knew we wanted to do something, and we did it. We made an app, and we made it free and available, and the funding followed to allow us to be able to do that eventually. It's due an update. We want to do that soon. We just have to find some sources of funding that allow that to happen. But it was certainly a big part of being able to make the argument effectively to get take-home naloxone throughout Northern Ireland, and I hope to support you guys in your programmes here as well. So what do take-home naloxone programmes need on a regional basis or a countrywide basis? You need credible and courageous people to work closely together. We're only part of the whole system that made it work and got it to work. There are many people, both some who are here today and many who aren't here, and some who have moved on, sadly, to other fields and areas, who were part of that journey with us. But they all had credibility. They all were experts. I suppose Carl was talking about it earlier. They were experts in their particular area, and they were aggressive and courageous in helping us get that to happen. So I'm moving on. I'm going to finish now with what are the future issues, risks and possibilities, I guess. The legislation changed this year. We all know that's given us easier access to expand take-home naloxone, or we hope we do anyway. A cursory read of that legislation would tell you that that's what it's supposed to be, and it was great to hear Alex talking a little bit about that earlier. But you have to interpret it broadly. So if you want to get take-home naloxone and get it into the hands of the people that most need naloxone, they're going to be the most disaffected, the most unlikely to want to come into contact with what I call traditional drug services. I suppose what you might be calling them is the recovery kind of orientated services. So those people are hard to reach, apparently, or, well, I don't actually think they've been that hard to reach. I think they've just been easy to ignore for far, far too long. Anyway, thank you. Okay, so you need to interpret the legislation broadly, and I think it gives us that. So we are going to interpret that legislation and allow hostels, as I said earlier, to provide take-home naloxone to people living in those hostels. All pharmacies involved in needle and syringe supply, and also opiate substitution. All low-threshold drug outreach services and all statutory addiction services as well will be able to give out naloxone. Now, the statutory addiction services are what I talk about are the trusts. They already do it, but they are going to have to shelter another burden shortly, because the Public Health Agency for Northern Ireland is now going to devolve the funding for take-home naloxone to the individual 5 trusts that we have. Up to now, the Public Health Agency has paid for the naloxone packs and now the Pronoxad packs that we currently use. But from April 2016, that will have to be the trusts. Now, I think if it hadn't already been established as a nationwide or a regional-wide programme, it could have been easy for the trust to go, well, it's not a spending priority, there's so many other things that we have to do, etc. But because it's already set, it's already done, and it's already in the contracts, it'll be very, very hard for the trust to step away from it. But we'll have to keep the pressure on them. Many of the people in this room who you all know who you are, we'll have to keep the pressure on the trust to say, how much naloxone are you giving out, and keep them accountable. So that's another concern that I guess I have. The other thing is, it's a wee bit of an odd one, it's these patient safety alerts that keep coming out. Has anybody noticed those? They tend to originate from England for whatever reason, and they tend to be around naloxone. These, and I've seen 2, and I'm actually going to a meeting next week to try and kind of, burst the bubble a little bit about it. The most recent one is about somebody who has, or from my reading of it, and it's been very brief because I only got it on a boat yesterday, was somebody with either chronic or cancer pain who was given too much opioids and then was given too much naloxone. And that precipitated a return of very, very severe pain, and that's caused some severe consequences for them. So you see the kind of programme or the situation they're developing. That is not the same with take-home naloxone. Very few people who we give take-home naloxone to also have chronic or cancer pain. So we are talking about people who are at risk of opiate overdose by virtue of their use of opiates. And we also train people very, very carefully to dose cautiously and appropriately. We talk about intramuscular injection rather than IV. And there's a whole range of other factors that are protective for the same situation arising. But it's interesting, I'm called as the lead trainer, I guess, to the meeting next week. around take-home naloxone because it's an naloxone kind of alert, but it's got nothing to do with this particular group that I'm concerned with. So those things are kind of things that we're working on at the minute, or anticipated future benefits or opportunities or risks. I've got nothing really to kind of sum up with. The only thing I will say is, you know, if you want to get naloxone out, you have loads and loads of credible people in this country and loads of courageous people. And Carl talked about that far better than I can. Those people should be involved in getting take-home naloxone to your local areas and throughout this country. Thank you.